something's going on. We need to work out what's going on. For some of us, it's actually quite difficult to reflect on our generosity. We feel guilty about it. You know, that we should have any satisfaction in being generous. You know, maybe you feel kind of maybe that's some sort of pride sneaking in, but that's not how the Buddha talked about it. The Buddha said to celebrate our generosity and to make much of it, to develop it. And he gave so many talks about generosity that I don't want to go into now. But just to say that when you practice, what you see is this development of the mind, yeah? And it's this development of the mind that applies to all the Anussatis, all of these acts of recollection. So you start with a subject, and this subject serves as inspiration. Because it's an Anussati, we're remembering back to something that we've done, yeah? So we're remembering something we've done. We are looking at cause and effect. We are seeing the cause. We are acknowledging the result in our own minds. And when we do this, what we're inclining the mind towards are an awareness of the wholesomeness of our actions. So it's good, we feel good. We do a generous act, we feel good on the inside, we feel lighter, we're letting go, yeah? Letting go of our own selfish interest, we're letting go of expectation, we don't want anything back, we're just giving. We are letting go of our greed. We're letting go of those negative aspects of mind like miserliness, selfishness. So these are things that we've let go in that moment. So even letting go of those things just for a moment is something to be celebrated on the spiritual path. You have a mind that can now distinguish between these two states of mind. You've already developed the mind to the extent that you can notice greed is present, miserliness is present, stinginess is present, and to know when those things are absent. So you're not just looking at what's there, you're looking at what is not there. Yeah? Do you understand? And it's this that helps us understand, okay, already I'm starting to come out of my suffering. Already I'm starting to come out of unhelpful, unwholesome, unskillful states of mind. Already I've been developing wholesome states of mind, skillful states of mind that benefit me and benefit others. So when we have this inspiration, what happens next is pamuja, joy, arises in the mind. This is a very important stage of our practice. That joy is like a kind of nourishment for our practice. If you've been meditating a long time in your life and you don't get any joy, then meditation is always a bit of a hard slog, yeah? It's always a bit of work. It's like, and you never want to go and sit down on that meditation cushion. Kind of always reluctant. You feel like you have to kind of force yourself. I'm going to go. You find 1,000 things to do. You find 1,000 excuses. You suddenly have to clean the house. And it's hard work. But if you've experienced some joy in your meditation practice, then you'll always want to go and sit down on the cushion. Why? Because the Buddha talked about a path that leads away from suffering. This is it. You know, this is the way you do it. You start to experience more joy in your life. You start to need less things outside of your meditation practice. All those things that you're running towards, running away from, become less important to you as you start developing this internal source of happiness. So this is a very low level kind of joy, but it develops. So the joy, and this is the sequence that is described not just for Chaga Nussati, But for all those other Anussatis that I've already mentioned, the joy deepens and becomes piti. You know what piti is? Piti is rapture, ecstasy, sometimes it's called, zest or enthusiasm. Piti is like the glue that sticks our mind onto the meditation object. So this is a very important stage too. It feels good. You feel it in the body, you feel it in the mind. And when you've got this in your mind, it's naturally wanting to sit there watching the meditation object because it feels good. It's happy. It's interested. So you're not bored, you're not looking for distraction. You're present, you're aware in that moment. Because this piti, this rapture, is gluing your mind onto the meditation object. It should be understood that whenever piti is mentioned, sukha is also present. But it's present in a different form at the beginning of the practice. When you have the piti coming up, it'd be a very intense form of sukha. And there's a lot of ways that we can think about this sukha and this piti working together. One classic image from the commentaries is the image of a traveller in the desert looking for somewhere to cool down and have a bath. It's hot, thirsty. And so they hear someone talking about an oasis and they're like, oh, I can cool down. This initial rush is the piti. Oh my gosh, there's somewhere I can go. And they walk towards the oasis. Seeing the oasis, the piti deepens, increases, becomes more powerful. And then they get into the beautiful cool water of the oasis. The sukha, the pleasure, is starting to develop in the mind. And then they bathe and they enjoy themselves. And afterwards they get out of the water and they sit down in the shade of the trees and they feel good and clean, peaceful and calm. So this is the sukha becoming very, very subtle, just the enjoyment of pleasure. So we have this piti develop in the mind, which can become much stronger. And when you get the piti, you'll notice that the body naturally relaxes and releases. Very quickly becomes very soft, malleable. You don't feel tense, you don't feel stiff. The body is just sinking down into this beautiful, relaxed posture. And this is why I often teach the relaxation at the beginning of the meditation. It's kind of like faking it till you make it. You start to relax and already you're jumping a few stages, yeah? If you feel good in your body, then you start to feel good in your mind. Sometimes we don't realize how much stress, anxiety, tension we accumulate in the body. And we don't realize that we can let it go, that we are suffering and that we can release that suffering really easily just by inclining the mind into a certain direction. So this is a very important skill to develop. I encourage you to do this at the beginning of your own meditation. But there's a natural stage that is also reached after the piti builds and develops in the mind, when the body reaches this stage called kaya passaddhi, and the body just releases down. And an image I often use to describe it is like when you let the air out of a tire. What's actually happening is your senses are starting to shut down. Your bodily experience is shifting. So this experience is very important because it means that we're moving from a sensory-based experience of reality to a mental experience of a purely mental experience, that is, of the mind. So we're starting to move from the physical to the mental. Our version of pleasure is also moving from the physical to the mental. So after you have this kaya passaddhi, this bodily tranquility which feels good, after you have that, then you develop the sukha. Sukha is bliss, pleasure. So you're starting to feel really good by this stage of the meditation. You're really happy, you just want to be there, you are experiencing the kind of thing the Buddha encouraged all the time. Develop these mental pleasures, he said. And then, because you're feeling good, because you're feeling happy and steady, this sukha, this pleasure, is what draws the mind deeper and deeper into stillness, samadhi. And this samadhi is very stable and very steady and incredibly still and peaceful. And it's from this samadhi that then we can start to develop an understanding through insight. So these stages of meditation are, the Buddha talks about them all the time. And he talks about them in terms of the Anussatis and why we should develop them. And it's for that sequence that you see that is very important, because this is a description of meditation, but it's also a description of the path that we're inclining the mind towards these wholesome states. We're inclining the mind away from unwholesome states. Some of these states that are developing are the enlightenment factors, the bojjhangas. Have you heard of these before? The 7 bojjhangas. So we're starting to develop these aspects of the path that are very helpful. So when we come to practice, when we start off with a puja like tonight with the salutation to the triple gem, it's called, with the Buddha Nussati, we're reciting some words, yeah? We're talking about the qualities, the epithets of the Buddha, the 9 epithets of the Buddha. So who here knows what they are? Oh no, we just all chanted them together. So you see that the power of the mind, we only ever use the smallest part of our mind here. But imagine if we could do something like that, not just as a mere ritual, not just as a recitation of some beautiful ancient text, but as part of our practice. And indeed, that's why we do it. That's why we chant those words. It's not because we have to tick a spiritual box. The reason we do it is to lift the mind, to inspire the mind. So when we talk about itipiso, so thus I've heard this about the Buddha. What's the next one? What does Bhagava mean? The Blessed One. Yeah, why is he blessed? He's so fortunate. You know, this is a title only given in those days to someone like the Buddha. It was like, this is the coolest dude you could possibly be at that time. So the Bhagava, the Blessed One. Blessed why? Because he's completed his work. He's become enlightened. It's a pretty cool thing. So already you're kind of like, whoa, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm inspired by that. The Buddha is the one who started the turning of the wheel of Dhamma, and that's why we're all here right now. Pretty cool, yeah? So you start to go, oh, this is nice, okay, that's good. What's next? Arahant. What does that mean? What's an Arahant? Fully enlightened, yeah, someone who is awake, someone who is noble, someone who has perfected their path and achieved liberation. So it's very easy to say, yeah? Very difficult to do. So you kind of take your hat off a little bit, maybe, to the Buddha. What's the next one? Samma Sambuddho, which means?
Perfected by himself.
Yeah, so fully enlightened, fully enlightened, fully awakened. So this is something to aspire to. This is the path that the Buddha has outlined. This is his insight, knowing that he was awakened, and all of the reasons for it. Okay, so itipiso bhagava araham samma. Vijja charana. Vijja is knowledge, yeah, and charana is conduct. So he is perfected in knowledge and conduct. So his knowledge is like his enlightenment knowledge, all of his insight into the nature of the Four Noble Truths, the cycles of dependent origination, the Tevijas, the 3 insights that he gained with his liberation. So it's like a whole other talk on that. And his conduct is his behaviour, his ethical conduct, and his sila, essentially. So again, important things to reflect upon. What's next? Vijja charana Sugato. Sugato means...
highest achievement.
Yeah, it could be that, yeah. Oh, there's so many different translations. It's a bit of a trick question, really. So it literally means the thus gone one, but some people translate it as the happy one. So I'm like, that's quite nice. I'll use that. Yeah, well, he's happy. Like, am I happy? Do I want to be happy? Does he have that quality of happiness? Or Bhante Sujato uses the word holy. So it could be either of those things. So he's happy because he's gone. He's done it. That's why he's happy. Not just because he could watch something on television or order Domino's or whatever. He's happy for pretty profound reasons. So Sugato Lokavidu, knower of the world, so he knows where all the different realms are, and he knows the reasons that beings are born into those realms. Again, pretty good lot of skill set to have. Again, that's another talk. Lokavidu. What's after that? Anuttaro. What does anuttaro mean? Again, it means the best, the highest, better than everything else. So again, pretty cool, pretty inspiring. And next, Purisa Sarati, which is basically, some people translate it as the caravan leader or the charioteer, but basically it means he's the teacher of gods and humans. So not just a human, but a teacher of gods, and not just a teacher of gods, but also a teacher of humans. So the Buddha says that he is capable of teaching gods, but they still have things to learn. And one of the reasons is because gods and celestial beings are so often unaware of the impending death. Even if it takes thousands of years, they might be enjoying themselves up in heaven or wherever, but they may be completely unaware of the need to develop their mind to escape from samsara. And of course, the gods can always fall down and come back as a human, make mistakes, or become an animal. So this is why the Buddha teaches gods. And he teaches us, he teaches humans. And this is very powerful, that we understand that there is a path that the Buddha outlined, that he was able to teach us. So when Kondanya, the first disciple, became enlightened, it was apparent that the Dharma could be taught, and that the Dharma was able to be shared to the point of completion, of arahantship. Okay, what's next? Yes, so he is the teacher of gods and men, and the leader of those who are trainable, those who wish to be trained. So people who are going to listen to the Dhamma. So it doesn't teach people who don't want to learn. It only teaches those who are willing to hear the Dhamma. And then Buddho, awake, yeah, enlightened. and Bhagawa again, that kind of holy, blessed one. So these are the 9 epithets of the Buddha. So when we chant them, it's not just a ritual, it's not just some sort of religious act, it's actually an opportunity for us to incline our mind towards the kinds of mind states of a Buddha. So we don't just bow 3 times, look at the Buddha, think of it as a mere object, don't just chant these words thinking of them as just mere words. We use them to develop our mind towards the qualities that the Buddha had. So we use those qualities to feel as if almost we are in the presence of the Buddha, that the Buddha is somehow able to connect with us deep inside, that we can grow our qualities in the same way that he grew his. And then of course there's the Dhamma Anussatis, which comes next. I'm won't have time to go through them all, but needless to say, the Dhamma is something that we can realize in this very lifetime. So when we talk about the qualities of the Dhamma, we're talking about things that are able to be understood by us through our practice. So the recollection of Dhamma goes very well with the recollection of Sangha and the Buddha who taught the Dhamma to the Sangha. And when we recollect the Sangha, it's very important to remember that we're talking about the 8 kinds of individuals. This is what we chant, yeah? Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pugala. So these are the 4 pairs, the 8 kinds of noble beings. So this is not the Sangha as you see it represented here, necessarily. So this is the noble Sangha, the Arya Sangha. So these are people who have attained to the path of stream entry, Sotapanna, and those who have accomplished the fruit of stream entry. Those who have attained to the path of once returner, those who have accomplished the fruit of once returner, those who have accomplished the path of non-returner, fruit, and then those who are on the path to arahantship, and those who have achieved the path of arahantship. So again, these are pretty cool beings, and the purpose of reflecting upon it is not to get put off the path and think, oh, it's too hard, I can't do it. The purpose is to inspire you that these beings exist in the world, that there are beings who have come out of their suffering to the point where they've achieved these states of mind, where they've become liberated. So this is a source of inspiration for us. Because if we say they don't exist, or it's not true, it's not real, then we're cutting off that path for ourselves. So it's very important to know that there's this possibility of awakening. And this is why we practice, yeah? So remembering that as we practice is very powerful. We are part of a very ancient tradition where there were, and perhaps still are, enlightened beings. Beings who realized nature of suffering, its cause, who realized the path that leads away from suffering and the cessation of that suffering. So we're part of that. So it's good to reflect on that. And what do we say about these beings? We say, Ahunayo, Pahunayo, Dakinayo, Anjali Karanayo. So Ahunayo means worthy of offerings. Pahunayo, worthy of hospitality. Dakinayo, worthy of gifts. Anjali Karanayo, worthy of making the expression of joined palms. Anjali. So these are ways that we show our respect to the beings who have practiced well, supatipano. So we offer these things to those beings, and often the mundane Sangha like us, we kind of stand in as the people's hope, that we are practicing well, that we're trying hard. And this is what we are doing as monks, as nuns, We are trying our hardest to achieve these very lofty goals. So this is the 3 Anussatis that form the start of our practice. So if there's not something in there that makes you feel kind of inspired about being a Buddhist, then maybe Buddhism isn't for you, I don't know. But probably there's something small from time to time that will just pop up in your mind. And this is a very beautiful moment. And when you experience this as a human, it's a powerful thing. You should take notice. Take notice. It could be anything. It could be like a little tingle at the back of your neck. Yeah? This uncanny feeling of like, yeah, I get that. Or when you think, that's something that really appeals to me, that's something that inspires me. Why? Ask yourself. So often we have spiritual experiences that we're completely oblivious to. Things that we ignore. Opportunities to develop our mind that we're just simply not mindful of, we're not aware of. And this means that we miss out on opportunities to increase our confidence, our faith in the Triple Gem, in the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. So if we miss out on those opportunities, then we're missing out on the opportunity to develop our mind in those wholesome qualities that are represented by the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So that's why we do it at the beginning of our practice. There's an opportunity there, if you're paying attention, to lift the mind, to inspire it. And from that inspiration, of course, again, this sequence, joy. It's very important to become familiar with this sequence, because when you start to notice it, you start to be able to develop it much better in your practice. So joy appears. And then the joy, suddenly, pity explodes in your body. You feel the hair on the back of your neck. You feel chills up the arms. You feel inspired. You feel connected to your meditation object. And then from that pity, what happens next? The sukha is mixed in there in this state, in this sequence. So the next thing that happens is the kaya passaddhi, the tranquility of the body and the senses. And from that, of course, it deepens the sukha. So when we talk about the piti sukha thing, piti and sukha always come together, but the piti is quite coarse. Piti is quite disruptive to the mind. It's useful, but it becomes bothersome in a way. And so then the body becomes calm, and then you see that other quality, which is the sukha. So you can have piti and sukha together, but you don't have to have piti with the sukha. So the coarseness of the mind becomes lessened through the development towards a more refined pleasure in the mind, which is that pure sukha. So when you have that, then you're starting to really take off in your meditation practice. You have that happiness, and that's when the mind gets drawn in to the stillness, to the samadhi. So when you've got that, anything is possible. Yeah? So this is a sequence that you can use the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha for. And of course, the next sequence in that list of Anussatis is Sila Nussati. So what is the point in reflecting upon your virtue? Why would you want to do that? On your ethical conduct. Why do you practice ethical conduct?
Without sila, you can't get samadhi.
Very true. Yes. Very nice. Yes. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. So samadhi is directly related to your sila. But why?
Is it the same idea as the looking at the cause and effect when reflecting on generosity?
Yeah.
So remembering that this action has led to this result.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah. And why else?
It enables you to feel more at ease with yourself and the world and others.
Why?
Because you have a sense of fearlessness and connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Still another. There's a little bit more in there.
What was the question?
Yeah, I can't remember either. Why would you want to? practice recollection of your ethical conduct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's like a feedback loop on yourself.
Very good.
So it's like, okay, I'm giving myself confidence
Mhm.
because I'm a good person. So just keep going and keep being a good person.
Yes. Yes, very good, yeah. I mean, for not knowing the question, you get a perfect answer. And the reason for that, of course, is that when we practice ethical conduct, like keeping our precepts, we're practicing a kind of restraint that is beneficial to us. We avoid unwholesome actions like killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, like lying, like getting drunk, causing ruckus. We avoid those unwholesome mind states, and when we do that, we protect ourselves and we protect others. Yeah? So if you watch your speech, if you are careful with the words you say, then you don't annoy anyone. You don't have bad interactions with people. You don't end up getting angry and punching someone in the face. Yeah? If you do that, then you'll have a lot of regret in your mind. You'll have a lot of agitation in your mind. If you steal something from someone, you start to feel guilty. You worry, they're going to catch up with you, they're going to find out. If you kill something, you feel sad. You know, every being values its life. I do. I don't want someone to kill me. So you start to see with the practice of sila that you are inclining the mind away from unwholesome states that lead to unwholesome results for you and others. And then when you've stopped doing those things, you're inclining the mind towards positive states that have wholesome results for you and others. If you don't kill things, they don't fear you. If you don't steal from people, they trust you. So when we practice like this, if we speak well and kind, then people like us. You know, we feel good. We don't have to go to bed that night upset about the things that we said that hurt someone. Yeah? So this is why we practice sila. The real reason is because we avoid two things. One, avipattisaro, regret. So this is non-regret. We have non-regret in our mind. The other is this beautiful quality that we have when we practice beautiful ethical conduct called anavajja sukha, the bliss of being blameless. You can go to bed at night feeling good. That wonderful feedback loop, that bliss of blamelessness, means that your mind easily becomes settled because it doesn't have any remorse, regret, agitation. It becomes easily settled, and this is why the mind, the development of sila, directly links to the development of samadhi. The more ethical conduct you practice, the better you feel about yourself, the better your relationships, the better your interactions in the world, and the more likely you're going to get good meditation. So then when we reflect upon our sila in this way, we're doing so to constantly remind ourselves of the benefit of practicing well, and then experiencing, even in that recollection, the result. So we start again with that sequence. You know, you take the inspiration, you feel good, you get the joy, and then you go through those other stages, developing deeper into samadhi. So you can see, even in that short little session, you can see the results and the effect of the cause, which is the good behavior. And so then when you have this, the mind, because it feels good, feels spotless, can keep on inclining towards these positive, wholesome states. So it's a good way to remind yourself of the benefits of practicing well. And I know that we're running out of time, but I'll just go on to that last Anusati that I mentioned in that series of 6, which often appears together. So we're skipping over now the Chaganusati, which we've already practiced. And the last one is the Devanusati, the recollection of the Devas. So at the time of the Buddha, and it was believed, So I don't know if anyone here believes in devas, but I don't see why not. That your good conduct would lead to a happy destination. So if you practice well, if you did things like generous acts, kind acts, if you kept your sila, then you are more likely to be reborn in a higher state. And the practice of recollecting the devas is to think about all the different states where people can be reborn, such as the Tavatimsa heavens, the Tusita heavens, the retinue of Brahma, these kinds of lofty realms, and the causes that led them there. So these things are present in the devas, but are also present in us. So when we reflect upon them, we're inclining our minds once again, thinking about the causes that we put into our practice that will produce the results that lead us to a happy destination. So this is that reason that when we practice the Dhamma, that we allow ourselves to think. So we read these things, we scroll through them, but unless we actually think about them, ponder them, make much of them, develop them, then we're only seeing a fraction of the potential of these things. So if you want to enjoy your Dharma practice, if you want to get the most out of it, then allow yourself to reflect, allow yourself to ponder, allow yourself to think, allow yourself to see the Dhamma being recited in your mind, experienced in your mind, and take it into your heart. And when you do this, the opportunity for development on the path is like a supercharge. It's like a skyrocket, which is launch your practice into a completely different dimension. And so that's why I recommend these Anussatis to you, and why I talked about them tonight. And I hope that they may be of some benefit to you and people in this room, as well, the devas and whoever else might be listening.